The princess is only 16 years old. She is afflicted with a mysterious illness. Scales have grown all over her body, and her heart is tightly coiled by a massive python. Under the torment of this strange disease, the princess endures unbearable pain every single day, watching her suffer day after day. Her guardian is overwhelmed with anguish, desperate to save her. He exhausts every means to seek out a renowned physician. Eventually, he hears of a genius doctor named Black Jack. Legend has it that there is no illness he cannot cure. Without hesitation, the man sends Black Jack a letter. One day, Jack receives a mysterious cardboard box. When he opens it, he finds it filled to the brim with money. Inside the box, there is also a letter and a map. The letter says that the sender's wife suffers from a strange illness and desperately begs Jack to come and treat her. However, Pinocchio tells Jack something unsettling. The package was sent 2 years ago. Sensing that something is terribly wrong, Jack immediately tells Pinocchio to pack their things and leave at once, hoping they are not already too late. Following the directions on the map, they head deep into the mountains, but heavy snow begins to fall, and they are still unable to find the address. Concerned for Pinocchio's safety, Jack decides to stay overnight at a nearby temple. Unexpectedly, their car gets stuck in the snow. With no other choice, they rest inside the vehicle, but when Jack wakes up again, he finds himself standing at the entrance of the temple. Without giving it much thought, Jack carries Pinocchio inside. Although the temple appears completely deserted, the massive bell in the courtyard suddenly begins to ring. Moments later, a stunningly beautiful nun emerges. Jack asks her to take care of Pinocchio as he prepares to go see the patient, but when he reaches the location marked on the map, he finds nothing but an ancient tree that has stood for 1,000 years. At that moment, a man in full armor suddenly appears on horseback. The man introduces himself as Saburo. He admits that he was the one who sent the letter and the package. Suddenly, a group of warriors charges forward aggressively, yet Saburo defeats them with ease. Saburo then takes Jack to where they are staying. There, Jack sees a group of wounded soldiers. After that, Saburo leads Jack to meet the patient, but the patient is not Saburo's wife. Instead, he addresses her as a princess. The princess shows no interest in Jack's arrival. She only asks whether Saburo has brought back the Euroleaf. Saburo explains that the storm outside was too severe, and he was unable to find any Euroleaf. Hearing this, the princess suddenly loses her sanity. Wearing a mask, she rushes out. She raises her long sword and strikes Saburo with full force. However, the blade is unsharpened, so Saburo is not injured. Jack tries to intervene, but he is knocked unconscious by the princess. When he wakes up, Saburo tells him the truth. The princess fell ill 4 years ago. At the time, the ruler of a neighboring country, Rokujoji, was captivated by the princess's beauty. He intended to force her to become his concubine, but the princess refused to marry a man over 60 years old. On the day before the wedding, she consumed a poisonous fruit. Fortunately, she was saved in time and did not die, but from that moment on, she developed this strange disease. Her body became covered in colorful, fish-like scales. She would frequently collapse into unconsciousness from unbearable pain. Only by consuming Euroleaf could the pain be eased, but Euroleaf is extremely addictive. Saburo dares not give her too much of it. Jack decides to perform a full examination on the princess, but he soon realizes something is wrong. All of his medical tools are gone. Left with no other option, he relies solely on his experience as a doctor. After examining her, Jack determines that the root of the illness lies in her heart. Suddenly, they discover someone eavesdropping from the ceiling beams. Saburo recognizes the intruder. Her name is Sutamaru. She is a subordinate of Mrs. Kaoru, the wife of Rokujoji. Sutamaru demands that Saburo hand over the princess, warning that an army will soon arrive otherwise. Her words enrage Saburo. The two immediately engage in combat. Sutamaru is defeated and escapes while she still can. Jack decides to return to the car to retrieve a spare set of medical equipment for the surgery, but along the way, he falls into a trap. Sutamaru appears once again. She forces Jack to go with her because Mrs. Kaoru wishes to meet him. When Jack sees Sutamaru heading toward the temple, he senses grave danger. He rushes back inside, only to discover that Pinocchio is gone, and the beautiful nun is revealed to be Mrs. Kaoru herself. Because Kaoru was unable to bear children, she was mercilessly abandoned by her husband, Rokujoji. Heartbroken, she became a nun, yet she still deeply loved her husband. She could not bear the thought of another woman replacing her. Kaoru declares that Pinocchio will now be her child. After saying this, she forcibly drives Jack away. The top priority now is to save the princess. Jack returns to the car, grabs his medical kit, and rushes back. As he goes upstairs, he overhears the princess accusing Saburo. She asks why he never married her. It turns out that the princess and Saburo grew up together. They had long been in love with each other, but because of the rigid divide between master and servant, Saburo never dared to cross that boundary. The princess was even willing to die with him by poison, but Saburo only wanted her to live on. Jack interrupts them and asks them to prepare for surgery. However, after administering anesthesia, the princess still cannot fall asleep. Left with no other choice, Saburo takes out the last remaining aloof. Only after consuming it does the princess finally fall asleep peacefully. Jack begins the surgery. At the same moment, Kaoru senses what is happening. She rushes into the room, strengthening her curse. Jack is horrified by what he sees. The princess's heart is tightly wrapped by a giant python. Suddenly, the python rapidly grows in size. Seeing this, Saburo immediately draws his sword. With a single strike, he slays the python. At the same time, Kaoru suffers fatal backlash from the curse and dies filled with hatred. After stitching the wound, Jack tells Saburo that once it heals, the princess will recover completely. But at that very moment, Rokujoji's army arrives. Saburo's few remaining soldiers are vastly outnumbered. They stand no chance. Yet Saburo finally makes his decision. Even knowing death awaits him, he chooses to stay by the princess's side. Meanwhile, Sutamaru delivers Kaoru's body to Rokujoji, but upon learning of his wife's death, Rokujoji shows no sorrow. All he can think about now is the princess. Suddenly, Sutamaru draws her sword to kill him, but she is immediately struck down by guards. With her final strength, she manages to kill Rokujoji as well. This tangled web of love and hatred finally comes to an end. At the same time, Saburo fights his way out, escaping with the princess. Overwhelmed with joy, he confesses his deep love to her. He promises that wherever she wishes to go, he will always stay by her side. But what he does not know is, she can no longer hear his words. The moment she learned of his feelings, her wound reopened, and she bled to death. Heartbroken, Saburo chooses to die alongside his beloved. When Jack arrives, Pinocchio tells him the truth. The soldiers dressed the princess's body and placed her inside Rokujoji's coffin to be buried together. The star-crossed lovers were never able to be together, even until death. The scene shifts. Jack wakes up once more. He finds himself still inside the car. Only half an hour has passed. Everything that happened before was merely a dream, yet it all felt vividly real. The snowfall has stopped. A man suddenly appears. He claims to be the one who wrote Jack the letter. Jack follows him to his home, climbing the familiar attic stairs. Jack is stunned. The man's wife looks exactly like the princess from the dream. After examining her, Jack determines the truth. There is a tumor growing on her heart. This condition requires surgery at a proper hospital. Jack goes downstairs to discuss it with the man, but the house is completely empty. When he tells the woman everything, she explains that her husband, Saburo, died in a work accident 2 years ago. Jack is left in disbelief. The package he received was sent exactly 2 years ago. It turns out that this cycle of love has never ended. Every crumpled banknote in that box carries Saburo's silent love for the princess. Jack said no more. He took the woman with him and left immediately, determined to take her to the best hospital for surgery. He believed this time the operation would be a complete success, because within her was the love Saburo had carried for her over 1,000 lifetimes. What is love in this world? That it compels us to pledge life and death to one another? May we all grow old in happiness with the ones we love. A boy named Lawrence develops a mysterious illness. Green plants begin growing all over his body. Even the genius Dr. Black Jack has never encountered anything like this before. Jack removes the green leaves growing on Lawrence's skin and takes them away for testing. However, the results far exceeded his expectations. He realizes that this illness can no longer be explained by science alone. Jack tells Lawrence about the findings, but Lawrence's older brother Ellenhead voices his doubts. He argues that some plants, such as fungi, can also parasitize animals, but Jack immediately dismisses this idea, because the plants growing on Lawrence's body are not fungi, but resemble moss-like vegetation instead. Jack plans to take Lawrence to a major hospital with professional equipment the next day for further examination, but in the middle of the night, Ellenhead suddenly calls Jack. He tells him that Lawrence has gone missing. Jack prepares to go search for Lawrence, and tells Pinocchio to go to sleep first. But what Jack fails to notice is that green plants have also begun growing on Pinocchio's skin. Jack arrives at Ellenhead's school. Ellenhead tells him that Lawrence has always been timid, and would never dare to go out alone. However, Jack notices something on the ground. The fallen plants come from Lawrence's body. From this, Jack concludes that Lawrence has already left the school. Jack assures him that he will help find Lawrence. Meanwhile, beside the sleeping Pinocchio, an ancient tree suddenly appears. The window is wide open. It turns out that Lawrence has come to find Pinocchio. He tells her that he has scattered seeds onto her body. Now, the two of them are partners. Pinocchio, having lost consciousness, follows Lawrence away. The two of them walk along the railway tracks. Moving steadily forward, they arrive at a garden filled with plants. Lawrence removes his clothes and lies down directly on the ground. Here, he feels an overwhelming sense of comfort. The plants growing on his skin seem to have grown even more. When Jack returns to the hotel, he discovers that Pinocchio is gone. Seeing the green leaves on the floor, he immediately realizes something is terribly wrong. He calls Pinocchio right away. Although Pinocchio answers the phone, she tells Jack that she and Lawrence are on their way to the airport. After saying this, she hangs up. Jack has no choice but to use his connections to find out that Pinocchio and Lawrence have purchased plane tickets to St. Phile. It turns out that before last year, Lawrence had been living in St. Phile with his parents, but he came to London to attend middle school and started living with Ellenhead instead. With the cause roughly figured out, Jack and Ellenhead head to St. Phile, but after finding Lawrence's parents, they learn that Lawrence never went to see them. Lawrence's father decides to join Jack to search for his son. Elsewhere, Lawrence is traveling in a single direction with Pinocchio, but his condition seems to be worsening. Plants have even begun growing inside his eyes. Pinocchio has to hold his hand and guide him forward. When they reach a river, Lawrence suddenly lies down. The plants on his body begin spreading rapidly. Pinocchio is terrified. She starts screaming desperately for help. This draws the attention of an old man. It seems that he came specifically to receive Lawrence, but just as they step onto the main road, they run into Jack. Jack immediately sends Lawrence to the hospital. After a full examination, the results shock everyone. The plants growing inside Lawrence's body appear to consciously avoid his vital organs. It is as if they are in a symbiotic relationship. However, although these plants do not directly harm his organs, they continuously drain nutrients from his body. Eventually, they would exhaust him to death. Jack has no choice but to perform surgery to remove the plants from Lawrence's body. For a full 28 hours, Jack works non-stop. At last, he completes the operation. He finally discovers the true cause of Lawrence's illness. Everything traces back to a seed that can reproduce endlessly. Jack asks Lawrence's parents whether anything strange happened to him in the past 2 years. Lawrence's father tells him about an incident 2 winters ago. During a violent snowstorm, Lawrence went missing. He searched for 3 days before finally finding him beneath an ancient tree. What was miraculous was that even an adult could not have survived safely in such weather. Yet Lawrence was completely unharmed. Later, he learned that the ancient tree was the guardian deity of the village. It had existed for 4,500 years. After hearing this, Jack decides to visit the ancient tree, but when he arrives, he sees an old man attempting suicide. It is the same old man who was previously with Lawrence. Jack saves him, but the old man resents Jack for interfering. He mocks him with cold sarcasm, calling him nothing more than a heartless doctor who only cares about money. The old man declares that he intends to live and die together with the tree. It turns out that the village plans to build a road connecting it to the city. To do so, they must destroy the ancient tree that symbolizes their guardian deity, and Lawrence's father happens to be the person in charge of the project. The old man believes that Lawrence's illness is a curse cast by the ancient tree upon his father. Jack becomes even more curious about the tree. He begins investigating it carefully, but he finds nothing unusual. One day, the construction crew prepares to cut down the ancient tree. The old man desperately tries to stop them. He even destroys an excavator using incendiary bombs. Meanwhile, Lawrence is finally allowed to have his bandages removed, but as soon as they are taken off, everyone is shocked to see that the plants removed from his body have grown back. Then Lawrence tells everyone that he has remembered something. Back when he got lost, it was the ancient tree that protected him. It even provided him with food. He could hear the tree speaking to him. The tree told him that it liked Lawrence's singing. It wanted him to sing for it forever. But later, Lawrence went to London. The ancient tree only wanted to remind him of the promise between them. At that moment, Lawrence walks up to the tree. He begins to sing with all his heart, but to everyone's astonishment, the tree that had lived for 4,500 years seems to finally be satisfied. It rapidly withers and grows old. Soon, it becomes nothing more than a dead tree, and then it collapses. Just like that, Lawrence's illness is completely cured, but the ancient tree does not truly disappear. Instead, it scatters its seeds across many places. In this way, it tells everyone, "If you need me, I will always be there. If you bid me farewell, I will come and go like the wind."